What's up, guys? So I am doing a install video today. I have got two pieces I'm going to be putting in, as the title obviously and the description explained, from SmartMoto. They're a company based out of, I believe, Greece. At least that's where the shipping came from. That essentially specializes in electronic sensor block-off plates. I know for like some of the Ducati stuff, they've got resistor block pieces, so if you want to get rid of something like an air injection system, you can still do it that way. So today I'm actually going to be installing their MT-09 block-off plate and sensor plug, I guess if you want to call it, which essentially allows you to remove your whole air injection system and plug the actual end of the plug for the electronics so that your bike does not throw the aero codes. I actually have already done this. I did it with my own system instead, so I actually made my own plates. I did not, however, put in a plug that has the resistor set up for it, so I'm actually going to go ahead and do this all over again with SmartMoto's pieces. The second part is I'm going to be putting in the O2 sensor block off. Essentially it's an O2 sensor plug and its respective electronics plug for it as well. So I'll actually be removing that sensor completely, whereas the air injection system for the block off plates is just doing that whole setup and then electronically plugging it as well. A little bit about the FZ-09. I've got a GPR slip-on exhaust system. Air filter is stock, and I have no map or piggyback. So this is essentially for most people who are going to be running a basic stock bike with a slip-on system or even maybe a full system. These electronics are designed for that particular market. Now they will work with piggybacks like the Power Commander series if you flash your ECU. These are for most people who do not flash their ECU to get rid of those electronics. These are for guys who just want to do it kind of quick and dirty style, don't want to have to worry about sending off the ECU. So today you guys are going to be on my chest while I go through this whole scenario. I'll give you guys pointers and kind of breakdowns on how to get into the system, install the parts, and then later, the last part of the video you guys will see is my actual review of the entire process of doing the install, how the bike ran before, and how it runs after. So hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to be doing is installing the SmartMoto Electronics block-off plates like I explained in the intro. A couple of things that you guys are probably going to want to have on hand is the service manual for your bike. I can't tell you how many times I've gone back and referred to this, whether it be for a service interval or just making sure that what I'm doing is correct, the process to get in and get out. I can't stress how important these are. Pick one up. You guys can get them at your local dealer. Or you can pick them up online through like the Climber or Haynes manual. So if you guys didn't know that, that little piece up here with a standard like full-size strap, you can actually anchor to it. Whether or not you care about it slightly scratching your frame is a different story. God, can I get this thing staying? But I've used it numerous times and it works great, really. It makes it so you don't have to come up here on the bars. I was thinking that I was going to need access to that part of the frame, but now that I've put everything in place, and I can't get this off. What the hell? I'm actually going to go ahead and anchor it there anyways. Okay, so in order to remove the tank, you need to remove these air fins right here to get to there's a side access bolt, I believe, behind this cover, and then there's the two access bolts here, right here at the frame. We're going to need to pull all four of those and then disconnect the fuel hoses from the tank to completely remove the tank. So that is the tank piece we have to remove. This plate sits behind it, so when you remove the tank, like I said, you don't have to remove that. For those of you who have not been into an FZ-09 before, this is the actual fuse box right here, and then actually it's come out of the little cover. That's the fuse box, and then on the other side is where your O2 sensor, or not your O2 sensor, your air temperature sensor is. Now, when it comes to removing this plate, I recommend you pull these two bolts instead of these two. It's much easier to have this bracket set in place than it is to try and line up your tank onto this one. Remove your tank. So you're going to want to lift your tank up forward so that you can actually get to the essentially the bottom side of the tank. You'll release your fuel hose lock. There's like this little tab that slides right here, and then if you get to the there's the blue button. The pinch button on either side of it. It's kind of a pain to get to. There we go. And then you're going to want to remove both of your fuel overflow and air locks. And then your plug here. And the tank is now removable. Alright, so now we're under the tank. Yet again, if you guys have never seen the inside of an FZ-09 and you own one, I strongly suggest you guys take notes. I tuck all my lines and hoses up underneath this bracket here just to kind of get them out of the work area. One of the cheater things that I've done from kind of doing some research and you know, knowing how hard it is to get to these throttle bodies, I've actually put in this set of hosing right here, which is the direct link to the nipples for the throttle bodies. If you guys check through your service manual, you'll see that at a certain mileage you'll have to check the synchronization of your throttle bodies, and essentially what I've done is made it so that I no longer have to remove this to get to the throttle bodies. I've just got hoses that run to the center and I just plug into those. It may be a little bit off in the sense of, you know, not being perfectly accurate with, you know, directly going to the nipple, but it essentially accomplishes the same thing. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to remove the airbox, but first we actually have to unplug the ECU from the box in order to get the whole thing out. One for me, one for the bike. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to tear these into 3 pieces because I have 3 intakes, not put it in dirt. That's dirty. When I remove the airbox, I want to make sure that nothing falls into the intake itself. So I want to stuff each one with a rag or paper towel or something that's not going to come apart when you put it in there, to kind of help block that passageway, so that way you make sure nothing falls into it. Clear. And there's also a plug right here in the bottom of it you guys are going to have to undo. You will want to grab a set of pliers because it's a pretty heavy duty pinch one. And on my airbox, I'm obviously missing what you guys are going to have to take off as well. There's going to be an air hose right here that goes into your air injection system. That is also going to need to be unplugged. So this is the actual crankcase breather. Crankcases need that vent, otherwise they produce pressures and don't do good things for your motor. So do not block this off. You want to keep this. This stays where it is. Do not, don't fuck with that. And that's the airbox. Got the ECU plugged in still. Everything's still in place. So this is where it gets complicated. On the bike stock, these are the two air injection ports. I've got the stock ports still on there, but I've actually made plates that fit to the bottom of these that are designed to be the same shape and fitment of where the plate bolts to. So I essentially have a shim in between where the valve or the air injection system goes in, so that it actually blocks the hole that the vacuum hoses actually go to. We're going to be removing both of these and substituting both of these for the SmartMoto block-off plates. So now that we've gotten the airbox plugged and we're getting ready to get our plates, there's two hints that are essentially going to make this much easier. First one is we definitely need to unhook one side of the radiator and kind of push it out of the way in order to access this far bolt back here and to get closer to these two bolts here to make it not as much of a pain in the ass. The second one is when you work on your bike, pretty much at any point, it's much easier to work on the bike when it's not hot or warm. Obviously the heat rating off it makes it uncomfortable, but on top of that, you're not going to burn your fingers trying to get into parts where this is the top of the motor head and it produces a lot of heat. So make sure that if you guys do have to work on it after you've ridden it, give it 20 or 30 minutes. So now, with the radiator just unhooked from the top, we can reach in and get access to these bolts. Cool to the touch for me. And that is your actual valve system, which I need to put back in. So this whole system is what these two plates are what I made to substitute for this. Put this back in place. And then we're going to grab to their hardware. Alright, so we have now installed the two block-off plates, and we put the plug in. The next step is to essentially terminate the actual air injection system plug, which I believe I located here. So that was my air injection system plug. I'll take that. And plug it in. Done. So with that plugged in, the system will now no longer throw an error code. Everything is reading as it's supposed to be. It's, it says that the sensor is there. All that mumbo jumbo. And I'm actually going to tuck it under here. Just kind of get it tucked out of the way. My next step is essentially the reversal of the process. So we want to put the airbox back in place, tighten down on all three throttle bodies, plug into the ECU, crank it down to the frame again, put the gas tank back on, plug in all our hoses and the electronic parts, and then bolt everything back up. But I'm actually going to do this as a two-part system. I'm actually going to also do the O2 sensor block off as well. So I'm actually going to continue, because I've already got the bike open, I might as well keep going. Alright, so we just finished putting in the block off plates from SmartMoto Electronics, and now we're going to put in the O2 sensor bung for the actual exhaust pipe, and then we're actually going to put in the plug for it as well. We're going to completely remove that sensor out of the bike. Okay, so first step we're going to do is we're going to remove the O2 sensor itself and insert the bung. Luckily enough, you guys don't actually have to have the bike torn down to this stage. I tore this down for a previous part install and to check a couple things at the same time. Luckily enough, for the actual O2 sensor, it's just a simple plug right here that goes into the essentially the back side of the collector to go to wherever your exhaust is, and then run this cable up to this plug. This plug will just simply, you'll just undo it and plug in the SmartMoto specified plug. It'll go straight in, and then you can completely remove this from the bike. So we're, like I said, we're going to first start out with this and get that O2 sensor out. So that will be for later. You guys won't have to deal with this because you don't have this, and if you do have the same setup, I suggest you guys safety wire somewhere up here. If you've got a joint somewhere, you could run it off of a bolt off the bottom of the drain pan, but I do not recommend it. I was using the actual O2 sensor stock because it had a little bit of meat on it that I could grab a hold of, but I obviously no longer need to. So yeah, so we're just going to keep going here. And the tab for the plug is on the back side of it, obviously in a pain in the ass spot. Alright, so that plug is out. We're going to re-plug the new one in. It obviously looks exactly the same. They've got a couple of resistors put into it. We're going to slide this in there. It clicks, bend that back in place. Done. So now you've got your O2 plug down here on the exhaust itself, and you've got your O2 sensor block off here. You could feasibly trace this all the way back if you really wanted to get rid of all the wiring, but it's possible this actually goes into the actual loom. So for this point, this is what they supplied. That's what we're putting in. So yeah, now they're both installed, and we're gonna reassemble everything from the previous job and get it back on the road.